He thought he was hiding his sins in a baby's room, but he just handed me the evidence to destroy him. It was 3:14 a.m. I know the time because the red digits on the baby monitor were burning into my retinas. My 4-month-old daughter Lily was finally asleep after screaming for 2 hours straight, but I was wide awake, on my hands and knees on the plush white rug, frantically searching for her favorite pacifier. I reached under the changing table a heavy white oak piece my husband Mark had insisted on buying because it matched the aesthetic of a successful family. My hand brushed against the wood frame. That's when I felt it. Not a pacifier. Not a lost sock. Duct tape. My heart did a strange little flip. Why was there duct tape on the underside of the changing table? I peeled it back. It was heavy. Something was taped to the wood. I pulled harder, the adhesive ripping with a sound that seemed deafening in the quiet nursery. A phone fell into my hand. It wasn't Mark's sleek iPhone 15 Pro. It wasn't my cracked Pixel. It was a cheap, black burner smartphone. The kind you buy at Walmart with cash when you don't want to be traced. I sat there on the rug, staring at it. The nursery smelled of lavender lotion and diaper cream, the sense of innocence. And here, in my hand, was something that smelled like guilt. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 25 years old. Until 10 minutes ago, I thought I was the lucky wife of Mark Jenkins, a 32-year-old regional sales director who worked hard, traveled often, and bought us a beautiful house in the suburbs. He told me I didn't need to work anymore. He told me my job was to raise Lily. He told me he handled the ugly stuff like bills and business so I could live in a bubble of happiness. He forgot to mention that the bubble was actually a cage, and he had a key to a completely different life. I stood up, clutching the phone. My hands were shaking. Mark was away on business in Denver. He had been gone for 3 days. He texted me goodnight at 9:00, saying he was exhausted and going to sleep early. I pressed the power button on the burner phone. The screen lit up. The battery was at 85%. Enter passcode. I stared at the keypad. Mark thinks he's a genius. He thinks he's playing 4D chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. But Mark is also a narcissist, and narcissists are predictable. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I tried the date he got his big promotion. Incorrect. Then I looked at Lily sleeping in her crib. Mark loved to play the doting father on Instagram. He was obsessed with the image of fatherhood. I typed in Lily's due date. Not her birthday, but the original due date. 0512. Click. The phone unlocked. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to grab the edge of the changing table to stop from collapsing. I was in. But being in was the easy part. Seeing what was inside, that was the part that killed the girl I used to be. The background wallpaper wasn't a generic geometric shape. It was a photo. It was a photo of Mark. He was wearing a flannel shirt I had never seen, standing in front of a house I didn't recognize. A house with a wraparound porch and a red door. He was smiling, a genuine, relaxed smile I hadn't seen in years. And he wasn't alone. A woman was standing next to him. She was older than me, maybe early 30s, blonde, curvy, smiling. And in Mark's arms was a toddler. A little boy with Mark's eyes and Mark's chin. I stopped breathing. This wasn't a mistress. This wasn't a fling in a hotel room in Denver. This was a family. I opened the photo gallery. There were hundreds of pictures. Mark and the blonde woman at Disney World. Timestamp 2 years ago, when he told me he was at a conference in Vegas. Mark holding the little boy at a birthday party. Timestamp last month, when he said he was doing a site audit in Phoenix. A sonogram photo. Timestamp 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. Misunderstand and Freddie maybe go? I scrolled to the most recent video. I played it. The volume was low, but in the silence of the nursery, it sounded like a scream. Video starts. Mark is sitting at a kitchen table, a different kitchen. He's blowing out candles on a cake. Boy's voice, "Happy birthday, Daddy." Woman's voice, "Make a wish, babe." Mark blows out the candles. He looks at the camera and says, "I already have everything I wish for right here." I felt like I had been punched in the throat. His birthday was last week. He told me he had to work late. I had made him a cupcake and waited up until midnight. He came home, ate it over the sink, and went to bed without saying a word. He wasn't working. He was with them. I dropped the phone on the changing pad. I walked over to the trash can and dry heaved. Nothing came up but bile. My husband didn't just have an affair, he had a whole other life. A second wife, a son, and another baby on the way. He hid the phone in Lily's nursery, under her changing table, because he knew it was the one place he wouldn't lose it. The one place I, the exhausted, overwhelmed mother, would never look. He treated our daughter's room like a storage locker for his sins. I looked at Lily. She stirred in her sleep, letting out a soft sigh. She looked so much like him. Rage. It started in my toes and shot up to my brain like an electrical fire. It wasn't sad rage. It was cold, calculating, terrifying rage. Mark Jenkins thought I was stupid. He thought I was just Sarah the mom, whose brain had turned to mush from lack of sleep. He forgot that before I was a mom, I was a senior research analyst for a data firm. He forgot that I know how to find patterns. He forgot that I know how to back up data. He was coming home tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. He expected to find a clean house, a happy baby, and a wife who was grateful he was working so hard to provide for us. Instead, he was going to find a wife who had spent the last 6 hours downloading every single byte of data from his secret life. But I couldn't confront him yet. Confrontation is for amateurs. If I screamed at him tomorrow, he would lie. He would gaslight me. He would say the woman was his cousin, the kid was his nephew, the phone belonged to a friend. He would delete everything and leave me with nothing but my paranoia. No. I needed more. I needed to know who she was. I needed to know where that house with the red door was. And most importantly, I needed to know where the money was coming from. Because Mark made good money, but not support 2 families and a mortgage money. I picked up the burner phone again. I went to the text messages. The most recent thread was with Jessica. Jessica, can't wait for you to come home tomorrow. Leo misses you. Did you get the transfer? Mark, sending it now. 5 Kate. Tell him Daddy is bringing a surprise. $5,000. Just like that. While he told me we couldn't afford to fix the AC in my car. I clicked on the banking app installed on the phone. It was a local credit union I had never heard of. It required a fingerprint. I looked at the glass of water on the nightstand. Then I looked at the glossy surface of the changing table where Mark had undoubtedly touched 1,000 times. But I didn't need his fingerprint. I had something better. I went back to the emails on the burner phone. I searched statement. A PDF popped up. First National Bank of Boise. Boise. He always went to Denver. He was never in Denver. He was in Idaho. I opened the statement. Account name, Mark and Jessica Jenkins. Balance, $142,000. Series a weekly for you. My jaw dropped. That was more money than we had in our entire life savings. Where was he getting this? And then I saw the deposits. Wire transfer, Sterling Corp. $12,000. Wire transfer, Sterling Corp. $15,000. Sterling Corp. That was his company. Mark wasn't just a cheater, he was embezzling. He was stealing from his job to fund his second family and hiding the evidence in my baby's room. I looked at the clock. 4:00 a.m. I had 6 hours before he walked through that front door. 6 hours to secure the evidence, put the phone back exactly where I found it, and pretend to be the loving, clueless wife he thought he owned. And you know what's significant whisper on what you gaff know what's speaking in priest for the because you know where to miss what happens next. I grabbed my laptop. I connected the burner phone. Copying files, 12%. I sat in the dark, the blue light of the screen illuminating my face. Daddy is bringing a surprise, he had texted her. Oh, Mark. You have no idea. He is pleased because the surprise isn't for Leo. It's for you. He thought he was living a double life, but he didn't know I had just booked a one-way ticket to meet his other wife. The progress bar on my laptop screen hit 100% at 4:42 a.m. Backup complete. I unplugged the burner phone. My hands were freezing cold, despite the heating vent blowing directly on me. I had everything. The texts, the photos, the bank statements, the GPS logs. I had a digital map of Mark's betrayal. But I wasn't done digging. I opened a new incognito window and typed, Jessica Jenkins, Boise, Idaho. Social media is a curse, but tonight, it was my weapon. Her profile popped up immediately. It wasn't locked. Why would it be? She had nothing to hide. She thought she was a happily married woman. I clicked on her About section, married to Mark Jenkins since 2020. I clicked on her About section, married to Mark Jenkins since 2021. I stopped breathing. 2021. Mark and I got married in 2020. I clicked on her photos. There was a wedding album. A wedding album. There was Mark wearing a tan suit. He told me he was at a team building retreat in Cabo that weekend, standing under a rustic wooden arch in a vineyard. He was slipping a ring on her finger, a ring that looked suspiciously bigger than mine. He wasn't just cheating, he was a bigamist. He had legally, or at least ceremonially, married another woman while being married to me. He was playing house in 2 different states with 2 different families, pretending to be 2 different versions of the same man. I looked at the timestamps. August 12th. Date night with my hubby. He told me he had food poisoning in his hotel room. December 25th, Christmas morning with Leo. He left our house at 6 a.m. on Christmas, claiming a client emergency. I felt sick. Every memory I had of the last 3 years was being rewritten in real time. Every time he was tired, every time he was stressed, every time he missed me, it was all a lie. He wasn't missing me. He was with her. I closed the laptop. I couldn't look at her happy face anymore, because the worst part wasn't that she was pretty. The worst part was that she looked nice. She looked like a mom who loved her kid. She was probably a victim, too. Probably. Okay. I looked at the burner phone. 4 years. At 30 a.m. I had to put it back. I walked over to the changing table. I grabbed the roll of duct tape Mark kept in the utility drawer, the one he used to fix things instead of actually repairing them. I cut a fresh strip. I crawled under the table. My heart was hammering against my ribs. If he came home early, if Lily woke up. I pressed the phone against the wood. I taped it down. I pressed hard, smoothing the edges so it felt exactly like it did before. I gave it a gentle tug. It held. I stood up, my knees cracking. I looked around the nursery. Everything looked the same. The crib, the mobile, the diaper pail. But the room felt tainted now. The monster wasn't under the bed. He was coming through the front door in 4 hours. It's at 12 a.m. sharp. I heard the garage door open. The rumble of his Tesla. I was in the kitchen, feeding Lily her bottle. I was wearing my favorite robe, my hair in a messy bun. I looked like the tired, devoted wife he expected to find. The door opened. Mark walked in, dragging his suitcase. He looked fresh, rested. He didn't look like a man who had been working 14-hour days. He looked like a man who had just spent a relaxing weekend in Idaho. "Honey, I'm home," he called out, that fake cheerfulness grating on my nerves like sandpaper. He walked into the kitchen. He dropped his bag and came over to kiss me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the frying pan drying on the rack and smash it into his face. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I turned my cheek at the last second so his lips landed on my ear. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Shh, she's almost asleep." Sorry, Mark whispered. He looked at Lily with that performative adoration. "Hey, princess. Daddy missed you so much." Liar, I thought. You have a son named Leo who calls you Daddy, too. "How was Denver?" I asked, focusing on the bottle's nipple so I didn't have to look at his eyes. Brutal, Mark sighed, walking to the fridge to grab a sparkling water. The client was a nightmare. Meetings ran late every night. I barely slept. The hotel bed was like a rock. The bed in the house with the red door looked pretty comfortable in the photos, I thought. "That sucks," I said. "But," he spun around, flashing that charming smile that used to make my knees weak. "I brought gifts." He opened his briefcase. He pulled out a small, crinkled paper bag from an airport gift shop. "For Lily," he said, holding up a cheap plastic rattle that probably cost $12. "And for my beautiful wife." He handed me a box of chocolates. Not Godiva, not local artisanal truffles, the generic kind you buy at the Hudson newsstand next to the gate. "Thanks," I said, taking the box. "He sent Jessica $5,000 yesterday. He brought me airport chocolate. So Mark said, loosening his tie, I'm going to jump in the shower. I feel gross. Airport germs, you know? Go ahead, I said. He started to walk toward the stairs. Then he stopped. Oh, he said casually, I think I left my watch charger in the nursery, on the changing table. Have you seen it? My heart stopped. He was checking. He was testing me. He wanted to go into the nursery to check on the phone. No, I said, keeping my eyes on Lily. I haven't been in there since 6 a.m. She's been fussy, so I've kept her out here. Okay, Mark said, I'll just pop in and check. Mark, don't, I said sharply. Que me saltava? What? She finally fell asleep. I lied. If you go in there and the floor creaks, you wake her up. And if you wake her up, you are dealing with her for the next 3 hours because I am exhausted. Mark hesitated. He looked at the nursery door. He looked at me. He weighed the risk of checking his burner phone against the risk of dealing with a screaming infant. Selfishness won. As always. Okay. He put his hands up in surrender. I won't go in. I'll shower first. He ran up the stairs. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He was nervous. Why? Maybe he got a text from Jessica that he hadn't read yet? Maybe he was worried the battery died? I put Lily in her playpen. I sat down at the kitchen island and opened my laptop. I had the evidence. I knew about the bigamy. I knew about the embezzlement. But I needed to know about the company. Sterling Corp. If Mark was stealing $12,000 and $15,000 at a time, he had to be covering his tracks. He was a regional director. He approved expenses. I opened the folder of downloaded files from the burner phone. I found a PDF labeled Invoice Consulting May. It was an invoice from a company called J&L Solutions. Services rendered strategic consulting amount $12,500. J&L. Jessica and Leo. He had set up a shell company in his second wife's name and was billing his employer for fake consulting services. This wasn't just messy, this was a felony. This was wire fraud. This was 20 years in federal prison. I smiled. A cold, dark smile. Mark thought he had 2 wives. What he actually had was 1 wife and 1 federal witness. But I couldn't just call the police yet. If Mark went to jail today, his assets would be frozen. The house, the savings, my car, everything would be tied up in litigation. I needed to secure my exit strategy first. I needed cash. And I needed legal protection. And I needed to meet Jessica. I picked up my phone, my real phone, and dialed the number for the airline. Hi, I said. I need to book a flight to Boise, Idaho, for tomorrow morning. One way. Mark came downstairs 20 minutes later, smelling of soap and arrogance. Feel better, I asked. Much, he grinned. Hey, I was thinking, since I've been gone, why don't I take Lily for a walk? Give you a break. He wanted to go to the nursery. He wanted to get the phone. Actually, I said, standing up, I have a better idea. My mom called. She wants to take Lily for the weekend. She's on her way over. Oh, Mark frowned. I just got home. I know, I said, walking over to him and putting my hands on his chest. I felt his heart beating. It was calm. He had no idea he was standing in a trap. But that means we have the house to ourselves. Mark's eyes lit up. Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. But first, I said, pulling away, I need to run to the store. We're out of wine. And if we're going to celebrate you being home, I need wine. I can go, Mark offered. No, I said. You stay here. Relax. Watch the game. Don't go in the nursery. Lily is still napping until Mom gets here. I grabbed my keys. I wasn't going to the store. I was going to the bank. Because according to the community property laws in our state, until filed for divorce, half of our savings account was mine. And I was about to make a very large withdrawal before Mark realized his J&L Solutions scheme was about to implode. I walked to the door. Love you, babe, Mark called out from the couch, already reaching for the remote. Love you too, I said. I walked out the door. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw him through the window. He was getting up. He was heading toward the nursery.
He is going to get the phone.
Let him have it. Let him see the battery is a little lower than he left it. Let him panic. Because by the time he figures out what happened, I'll be halfway to the bank. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I'm going to Idaho to introduce myself to the other Mrs. Jenkins. He thought he had 2 wives kept in separate boxes, but he didn't know we were currently sharing tequila and plotting his downfall. Bank tellers are trained to spot nervousness. They look for shaking hands, sweating, avoiding eye contact. So when I walked into the First National Bank branch 10 minutes later, I channeled my inner Mark. I stood tall, I smiled with my teeth. I projected the kind of unearned confidence that mediocre men use to run the world. "Hi," I said to the teller, a young woman named Brenda. "I'm making a withdrawal from the joint savings, personal emergency. My mother needs surgery." It was a lie, but it was a believable one. Of all the sustenance, Brenda typed on her keyboard. "How much?" $62,000. I said, in a cashier's check made out to Sarah Jenkins. Brenda paused. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then to me. "That's almost half the balance, ma'am. For an amount that large, I usually need a manager's override." "Is my name on the account?" I asked, keeping my voice sweet but firm. "Yes." "Do I have full signatory rights?" "Yes." "Then please get the manager," I smiled. "I'm in a hurry. Mom's waiting." 10 minutes later, I walked out with a check for $62,000 folded into my purse. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to hire a shark of a divorce lawyer and pay rent on an apartment for a year. I also transferred $5,000 from our checking account, the exact amount Mark had sent Jessica yesterday. Call it a petty tax. I drove home. When I walked in, the house was quiet, too quiet. "Mark," I called out. He appeared at the top of the stairs. He looked pale. His hair was messy, like he had been running his hands through it repeatedly. "Hey," he said. His voice was tight. "You're back." "Got the wine." I held up the bag. I had stopped at a liquor store too. "Is everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Yeah, he stammered, coming down the stairs slowly. I checked on Lily. In the nursery." "Oh, I walked into the kitchen and started unpacking the wine. Did you wake her?" "No," Mark said. He walked into the kitchen and leaned against the counter, watching me closely. "Sarah, did you move anything in there while you were cleaning?" "Move anything?" I asked innocently. "Like what? The furniture?" "No, just under the changing table. Did you clean under there?" He was fishing. He had checked the phone. Maybe the tape had come loose. Maybe I hadn't put it back exactly right. Or maybe he just sensed that the energy in the room had shifted. "I vacuumed a few days ago," I said, pouring 2 glasses of Pinot Noir. "Why, did you lose something?" Mark stared at me. He was looking for a crack. He was looking for the guilt. But I didn't have any guilt. I only had a cashier's check and a plane ticket to Idaho. "No," he exhaled, grabbing the wine glass. He downed half of it in one gulp. Just felt weird in there. "Maybe I'm just tired from the trip." "You work too hard, honey," I said, clinking my glass against his. "You should relax this weekend. Mom is picking up Lily in an hour. You'll have the whole house to yourself." "Right," Mark nodded, distracted, to myself. He didn't know that to himself meant he would be alone with his paranoia while his wife flew across the country to dismantle his double life. The next morning, I kissed Mark goodbye at 7 a.m. I told him I was driving to my mom's house to help with Lily because Mom had a migraine. He barely looked up from his iPad. He was probably texting Jessica, telling her he couldn't talk because his nagging wife was around. I didn't drive to my mom's. I drove to SeaTac Airport. The flight to Boise was short, less than 2 hours. I spent the entire time staring out the window, watching the clouds, rehearsing what I would say. "Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm Mark's wife." "Hi, I'm Sarah. You're sleeping with my husband." "Hi, I'm Sarah. We need to talk about J&L Solutions." Nothing sounded right. How do you tell a pregnant woman that her marriage is a felony? I landed in Boise at 11:30 a.m. The air was crisp and dry. I rented a nondescript sedan and plugged the address from the tax records into the GPS. I'm in Tiff, 102 Maplewood Drive. As I drove through the suburbs of Boise, my stomach turned. It looked so normal. Nice lawns, basketball hoops and driveways. It was the exact same suburban dream Mark had sold me in Seattle, just in a different zip code. I turned onto Maplewood Drive, and there it was, the house from the wallpaper photo, the wraparound porch, The red door. A tricycle was parked on the front walk. A blue tricycle. Leo's tricycle. I parked across the street. I turned off the engine. My hands were shaking so bad, I had to grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Do it, Sarah. Do it for Lily. I got out of the car, I walked up the driveway, I stepped onto the porch. I rang the doorbell. Ding dong! I heard footsteps. A dog barked. Then, the red door opened. Jessica stood there. She was even prettier in person. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized t-shirt that couldn't hide the baby bump. She looked tired, happy, and completely unsuspecting. "Hi," she said, smiling politely. "Can I help you?" She didn't know me. Of course she didn't. Mark probably told her I was crazy, or dead, or didn't exist at all. "Hi," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. "Are you Jessica Jenkins?" "I am," she nodded. "Are you with the HOA? Mark keeps saying he'll paint the shutters, I swear." She thought I was the homeowners association. She thought Mark was her husband who just procrastinated on home repairs. "I'm not with the HOA," I said. I reached into my purse. I didn't pull out a weapon. I pulled out my phone. I unlocked it and opened the photo gallery to a specific picture. It was a photo of me and Mark on our wedding day. Me in white, Mark in a tux. I turned the screen toward her. "My name is Sarah Jenkins," I said, "and I think we have the same husband." Jessica looked at the phone. She looked at Mark's face in the photo. Then she looked at my face. She didn't scream. She didn't faint. She froze. Her hand went instinctively to her stomach. Her eyes went wide, filled with a confusion so deep it was painful to watch. "I don't understand," she whispered. "That's Mark. But who are you?" "I'm his wife," I said gently. "We live in Seattle. We have a 4-month-old daughter named Lily." "No," Jessica shook her head, backing away. "No, that's impossible. Mark works in Seattle. He travels for Sterling Corp. He's coming home next week." "He's not coming home next week," I said. "He's in Seattle right now, with me." "Well, at our house." "You're lying," she said, her voice trembling. "You're some crazy ex-girlfriend. Mark told me about you, the one who wouldn't let go." "Did he?" I asked. "Did he tell you I wouldn't let go? Or did he tell you we got married on June 12th, 2020? Did he tell you our daughter was born 4 months ago? Did he tell you he embezzled money from his company to pay for this house?" Jessica backed up until she hit the hallway wall. She looked like she was going to be sick. "He said he got a bonus," she whispered. "For the down payment." "He didn't get a bonus," I said. "He stole it." And Jessica, I have the proof. I found his second phone. At the mention of the phone, Jessica's face changed. The denial cracked. She knew about the phone. Maybe she had seen him hiding it. Maybe she had wondered why he was so protective of it. "The black one?" she asked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "With a cracked screen." "Yes," I said. She slid down the wall, sitting on the floor of her entryway, burying her face in her hands. "Oh my God," she sobbed. "Oh my God." He swore to me. He swore he was divorced. I stepped into the house. I closed the red door behind me. "He told you he was divorced?" I asked, kneeling beside her. "Yes," she cried, looking up at me. "He said you were separated, that the papers were just taking a long time." He showed me the papers. "He forged them," I said. "Mark is good at documents." We sat there on the floor of the entryway for a moment. 2 women, 2 wives, 1 pregnant, 1 with a newborn, both married to a ghost. "I'm sorry," Jessica whispered. "I didn't know. I swear to you, Sarah, I didn't know." I looked at her. I believed her. She wasn't a villain. She was just another victim of Mark's charm. I said, "But now we both know." I reached into my bag and pulled out the file folder I had brought. The printouts of the bank statements. The J&L Solutions invoices. "Jessica," I said seriously, "we have a problem bigger than the marriage. Mark is using your name and your son's name to launder stolen money. J&L Solutions. That's my consulting LLC." Jessica wiped her eyes. "Mark set it up for me. For tax purposes. He said it was for my freelance graphic design." "It's not for design." I opened the file. It's a shell company. He's billing Sterling Corp for fake services and funneling the money into your joint account. If the IRS or the FBI looks at this, they're going to come for you." Jessica went pale. "I signed those checks. He told me to sign them." "Exactly," I said. "He set you up to take the fall." Jessica stared at the papers. The sadness in her eyes was replaced by fear, and then, slowly, by anger. The protective anger of a mother who realizes a wolf has been sleeping in her bed. "He put Leo in danger," she hissed. "He put my baby in danger." "Ugh." "Yes," I said, "he did." Jessica stood up. She wiped her face. She took a deep breath. She looked at the photo of Mark on the hallway table, smiling, holding Leo. She walked over to it and turned it face down. "What do we do?" she asked. I stood up and smiled. It was the first real smile I'd had in 48 hours. "We ruin him," I said, "but we have to be smart. He's in Seattle right now. He thinks he's safe. He thinks you're here waiting for him and I'm at my mom's house." "He's expecting a video call tonight," Jessica said. "At 8 p.m. to say goodnight to Leo." "Perfect," I said. "Let's give him a call. He'll never forget." I looked around the house. "Do you have a printer?" I asked. "And maybe a bottle of wine? Because we have a lot of work to do before 8 p.m. Jessica nodded. A grim determination set in her jaw. "I have tequila," she said. Even better. We thought sending our husband to prison was the end of the story, but the funeral wreath on the porch told us it was just the beginning. 8:00 p.m. in Seattle is 9 p.m. in Boise. Jessica and I sat on her beige sectional sofa. Leo was asleep in his room. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the frantic beating of our hearts. On the coffee table, an iPad was propped up against a stack of books. A bottle of tequila stood next to it, 2 shot glasses already empty. We weren't drunk, we needed the liquid courage to keep our hands steady. "He's online," Jessica whispered, staring at the screen. Her face was pale, but her eyes were dry. She had spent the last 3 hours crying, then vomiting, then screaming into a pillow. Now she was just numb and angry. "Call him," I said. Jessica tapped the FaceTime icon. Ringing, ringing. The screen connected. Mark's face filled the frame. He was in our living room in Seattle. I could see my curtains in the background. He was wearing his glasses and a t-shirt, looking relaxed, holding a beer. "Hey, babe." Mark smiled, that warm, fatherly smile that was entirely manufactured. "How's my Idaho crew? Is Leo awake?" Jessica didn't smile back. She just stared at him. "I'll bet him." Mark frowned, leaning closer to the camera. "Everything okay? You look serious. Is Leo sick?" "Leo is fine," Jessica said, her voice flat. "But we need to talk, Mark." "Okay," Mark chuckled nervously. "You sound ominous. What's up? Did the water heater break again?" "No," Jessica said. "I have a friend here who wants to say hi." Mark looked confused. "A friend? At this hour?" Jessica shifted the iPad. She angled it so that I came into the frame. I looked directly into the camera, directly into his eyes. "Hi, honey," I said. Mark dropped his beer. I'm not speaking metaphorically. He physically dropped the bottle. It hit the floor and shattered, beer foaming over the hardwood I had just polished 2 days ago. Sarah, Mark choked out. He scrambled backward, knocking over a lamp. What are you?" How he looked at the screen like it was a portal to hell. He looked at Jessica. He looked at me. He looked at the two of us sitting shoulder to shoulder in his secret Idaho living room. "What is going on?" he screamed, his voice cracking. "Is this a joke? Is this some kind of sick prank?" "No prank, Mark," I said calmly. "Just a family reunion. You wanted 2 families, right? Well, now you have them. Together." "How did you get there?" Mark was hyperventilating now. "You said you were at your mom's. You said..." I lied. I cut him off. Just like you lied about Denver and Phoenix and the consulting trip to Cabo where you married Jessica. Mark turned to Jessica on the screen. "Jess, baby, listen to me. She's crazy. She's stalking me. She broke into your house. You need to call the police. She's dangerous." Jessica laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound.
I did call the police, Mark, Jessica said, but not on Sarah.
Mark froze. What? We had a long talk, Jessica said, picking up the stack of papers we had printed. About J&L Solutions. About the wire transfers. About how you forged my signature on the incorporation documents.
Jess.
Don't. Mark held up his hands. Don't listen to her. That's business. It's complicated. I did that for us. For Leo's future. You did it to steal from your company, I interjected. And you set Jessica up as the fall guy. You put the shell company in her name. If the IRS came knocking, who goes to jail, Mark? The consultant who signed the invoices? Or the husband who didn't know anything? Mark was sweating profusely now. He was pacing around our Seattle living room, running his hands through his hair. You don't understand, he babbled. It's not stealing. It's creative accounting. I was going to pay it back. I just needed the cash flow to handle the 2 mortgages. Oh, so you admit it, I asked. You admit you have 2 mortgages? 2 wives? I love you both, he shouted. I couldn't choose. Sarah, you're my rock. Jessica, you're my passion. I have so much love to give. It spilled over. I didn't want to hurt anyone. You are a narcissist, I said. You don't love anyone but yourself. You treated us like assets in a portfolio, diversifying your risk. Please, Mark begged, coming back to the camera. Tears were streaming down his face now. Please, we can fix this. I'll stop. I'll choose. Just tell me what to do. Don't ruin my life. Don't go to the police. Jessica looked at me. I looked at her. We already went to the police, Mark, Jessica said. Mark stopped breathing. What? I went to the Boise PD this afternoon, Jessica said. With Sarah. We showed them the forged marriage license. We showed them the J&L bank statements. And I added, I called the FBI field office in Seattle. Turns out, interstate wire fraud and embezzlement over $100,000 gets their attention pretty quickly. No, Mark whispered. No. They told us to keep you on the line, I said, checking my watch. They said they were about 5 minutes away from the house. Mark's eyes bulged. He looked toward the front window of our Seattle house. Blue and red lights flashed across his face. We heard it through the iPad speakers. The siren. The pounding on the door. FBI, open up.
You touch it.
Mark screamed, his face twisting into a mask of pure hatred. You ruined everything. I gave you everything. I paid for this house. I paid for everything. With stolen money, I shouted back. And now the bill is due. Crash. We heard the front door being rammed in. Mark turned to run toward the back door, but we saw the agent swarm into the living room. They tackled him. The iPad fell off the table or whatever it was resting on, tumbling onto the floor. For a few seconds, all we saw was the ceiling fan spinning above. All we heard was Mark screaming, I have rights! Get off me! My wife will explain everything! Which wife, Mark? I whispered to the screen. An agent picked up the iPad. A stern face appeared on the screen. Ma'am, the agent asked, are you Sarah Jenkins? Yes, I said. And Jessica Jenkins is here with me. We have the suspect in custody, the agent said. We've secured the devices in the home, including a lot of hard drives in the basement. Good, I said. Check the nursery too, under the changing table. There might be more. Will do. We'll need you both to fly back to Seattle for statements. I will be there tomorrow, I said. The agent ended the call. The screen went black. The silence in the Boise living room was heavy. Jessica let out a long, shuddering breath. She picked up her tequila shot. Her hand was shaking, but she knocked it back in one gulp. He's gone, she whispered. He's gone, I agreed. He called me a tetch, she said, staring at the empty glass. And he called us both patches, I corrected, because we were smarter than him. Jessica looked at me. So what now? He's in jail. The accounts are frozen. I don't have a job, Sarah. I have a toddler and a baby on the way. The house, the mortgage is probably fraud too. She started to cry again. The reality of the fallout was hitting her. Mark was gone, but the mess remained. We figure it out, I said. I have some money. I pulled it out before I left. It's not a fortune, but it's enough to get us lawyers. Lowe's? Jessica asked. Yes, us, I said. You're a victim, Jessica. You didn't know. I'm going to make sure the FBI knows that. You're not going to prison for his crimes. Thank you, she sobbed. I put my arm around her. It was the strangest feeling in the world, comforting the woman my husband cheated on me with. But in that moment, she wasn't the other woman. She was the only person on earth who understood exactly what I was going through. But as I sat there, a thought nagged at me. Mark had screamed about hard drives in the basement when the FBI broke in. The agent mentioned them too. Mark wasn't a tech guy. He was a sales guy. Why did he have hard drives in the basement? And then I remembered something from the burner phone data I had downloaded but hadn't looked at closely yet because I was so focused on the affair. There was a folder labeled Client List. I grabbed my laptop. I opened the folder. I expected to see a list of companies Sterling Corp worked with. Instead, I saw photos. Photos of people, men in suits, handshakes in parking lots, timestamps, and a spreadsheet. Senator Davidson, 50 cows. Judge Miller, 20 cows. Councilman Reeves, 10 cows. My blood ran cold. Mark wasn't just embezzling from his company to pay for 2 families. He was the bag man. He was the middleman for a massive bribery scheme involving Sterling Corp and local politicians. That's where the real money was coming from. That's why he had the burner phone. The affair was just a side hustle. The real crime was political corruption. Jessica, I whispered, staring at the screen, don't drink anymore. So look, what can I ruined away all the kind of debt to building the shirts, mutts. Because I turned the laptop to show her. We didn't just catch a cheater, we just caught a conspiracy. And if Mark was the bag man, that meant someone powerful was about to be very, very unhappy that he was in FBI custody. And we were the ones who put him there. My phone rang. It wasn't the FBI. It wasn't Mark. It was a blocked number. I answered it. Mrs. Jenkins. A deep, distorted voice spoke. You have something that belongs to us? A phone. We suggest you don't give it to the feds. Who is this? We're the people who paid for your house, the voice said. Check your front porch. I looked at Jessica. I walked to the window and peered through the blinds. A black sedan was parked across the street, and on the front porch was a wreath. A funeral wreath. Sarah, Jessica asked, terrified, who is it? It's the other family, I said, locking the deadbolt. The Sterling Corp family. He thought we were running scared, but we were driving straight into the lion's den to live stream his secrets to the world. Fear smells different than heartbreak. Heartbreak smells like old wine and tissues. Fear smells like sweat and adrenaline. I stared at the funeral wreath on the porch through the slats of the blinds. The black ribbon on it didn't say rest in peace. It said, silence is golden. Sarah, Jessica whispered, clutching her stomach. Who are those people? Why are they watching us? They aren't watching us, Jessica, I said, moving away from the window. They're waiting for us. They know Mark has the ledger. They assume, since we blew up his life, we probably have his secrets too. Yes, I tapped my laptop bag. We have everything. I looked at her. She was shaking. She was a graphic designer from Idaho who thought her biggest problem was a cheating husband. Now she was a target in a corporate conspiracy. We have to go, I said. Right now, grab Leo. Do not turn on the lights. Do not pack a suitcase. Just grab the diaper bag and your keys. My car is in the driveway. Jessica panicked. If we walk out the front door, they'll see us. We aren't taking your car, I said. We're taking the rental I parked a block away. Does this house have a back gate? This people knows. Jessica ran to Leo's room. I watched the black sedan across the street. The engine was running. I could see the glow of a cigarette in the driver's seat. 5 minutes later, we were creeping through the backyard. Jessica had a sleepy, confused toddler on her hip. I carried the laptop bag and the burner phone, the nuclear football of our lives. We slipped through the wooden gate into the alley. It was dark. Dogs barked in the distance. We ran, crouching low behind garbage cans and parked cars, until we reached my rental sedan. They threw the bags in the back. Jessica buckled Leo in with trembling hands. I jumped in the driver's seat and started the car. I didn't turn on the headlights until we were 2 blocks away. "Where are we going?" Jessica asked, looking behind us every 2 seconds. "Not a hotel," I said. "Hotels require IDs. IDs leave a digital trail. If these guys can hack Mark's payroll, they can track a credit card." "There's a 24-hour truck stop on the highway," I said. "We blend in, we figure out our next move." An hour later, we were sitting in a booth at Big Al's truck stop. The neon lights hummed overhead. Leo was eating pancakes, blissfully unaware that his father was in federal custody and his mothers were on the run. I opened the laptop again. I needed to understand the scope of what we were holding. The spreadsheet was massive. It wasn't just bribes, it was extortion. Project Skyline environmental report, faked bead $100 to Inspector Davis. Union-busting consultant fees, $50. Mark wasn't just a bagman, he was the architect. The emails showed him proposing these schemes. He suggested the shell companies. He suggested using J&L Solutions to wash the money. He wasn't a pawn, he was a player. "My God," Jessica whispered, reading over my shoulder. "I thought he was just a salesman." "He told me he sold software." "He sold souls," I muttered. My phone, my real phone, buzzed on the table. Unknown caller. I froze. Was it the voice again? I answered, putting it on speaker but keeping the volume low.
Hello?
"You have a prepaid call from the Federal Detention Center. Inmate Mark Jenkins. Press 1 to accept." I looked at Jessica. Her eyes went wide.
I pressed 1.
Sarah, Mark's voice came through. He sounded frantic, breathless. "Sarah, thank God you picked up. Listen to me. Don't hang up." "I'm listening, Mark," I said coldly. "Enjoying the accommodation." "Shut up and listen," he hissed. "You have no idea what you've done. The FBI? That's the least of my problems. The people I work for, they don't do lawsuits. They do accidents." "We know," I said. "We got the wreath. Nice touch." "They sent a wreath?" Mark's voice dropped an octave. "Oh, God. Sarah, you have to help me. You have to give them the drive. You have to give it back." "Give them the drive?" I asked. "You want me to hand over the evidence of your crimes to the people who are threatening to kill us?" "It's the only way," Mark pleaded. "If you give it back, they might let us live. They just want the leverage gone. Sarah, please." "For Lily. For Leo." "Don't you say his name!" Jessica leaned into the phone, her voice shaking with rage. "You don't get to use him as a bargaining chip. You put a target on his back." Mark sounded stunned. You're still with her?" "Yeah, Mark," Jessica said. "We're having pancakes, and we're deciding which federal prosecutor to give this laptop to." "And wait," Mark screamed. "Do not give it to the feds. Half the feds are on the payroll. Why do you think I wasn't arrested months ago? If you turn that in, it disappears, and we end up dead in a ditch." I paused. He might be lying, but the client list did have a lot of names on it. Judges, councilmen. "Then who do we trust, Mark?" I asked. "If everyone is corrupt, what do we do?" "You leverage it," Mark whispered. "You call Arthur Sterling, the CEO. You tell him you have the drive. You tell him you want $5 million and safe passage to non-extradition country. We can all disappear. We can start over." I stared at the phone. He was still doing it. He was still trying to scam his way out. He thought this was a negotiation. He thought we were partners in his crime. Blame. I asked. "Yes, us, the family." "There is no family, Mark," I said. "There is me and Jessica and the kids. You are just the cancer we cut out." "Sarah, don't be stupid. You can't fight Sterling Corp. They will crush you." Watch me, I said. I hung up. I looked at Jessica. He's right about one thing. We can't just walk into a police station. If the corruption goes this deep, the evidence might accidentally get corrupted. So what do we do? Jessica asked. We can't keep running with a toddler. No, I said. We stop running. We go on offense. Mark said Arthur Sterling is the CEO, the head of the snake. I typed Arthur Sterling into the search bar. He was giving a keynote speech tomorrow morning in Seattle at the Tech Innovation Summit. We don't give the evidence to the police, I said, a plan forming in my mind. We give it to the world. The summit is live streamed, I said, millions of viewers. Reporters from every major network. I looked at the burner phone. It had a casting app installed. Mark used it to watch movies in hotel rooms. If we can get close enough to the venue's Wi-Fi, I said, we can hijack the feed. Jessica looked at me like I was insane. Sarah, that's movie stuff. That's dangerous. Staying here is dangerous, I said. Living in fear is dangerous. Do you want to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder? Or do you want to burn them down so completely they can never touch us again? Jessica looked at Leo, who was happily smearing syrup on his face. She wiped his cheek. Her expression hardened. I have a background in AV setup, she said quietly. From my graphic design days, I know how those conference feeds work. I smiled. I knew I liked you. We need to get to Seattle, Jessica said. But we can't fly. They'll be watching the airports. We drive, I said. It's an 8-hour drive. We take shifts. We get there by dawn. We stood up. We left cash on the table. We walked out to the rental car. The night was dark, but for the first time in days, I saw a path forward. Mark thought he was the player. He thought he was the genius who could juggle 2 lives. But he forgot the most basic rule of survival. Never underestimate a mother protecting her child. We got in the car. I pointed the nose toward the highway, toward Seattle, toward the lion's den. Hey, Jessica, I asked as I merged onto the interstate.
Yeah.
Did you bring the rest of the tequila? Good, we're going to need it to toast when Sterling goes down. We parked outside the fortress of glass and steel, armed with a laptop and a grudge that was about to go viral. The Seattle Convention Center looked like a fortress of glass and steel. Security drones buzzed overhead, and black SUVs lined the VIP entrance. Inside, Arthur Sterling was preparing to give his keynote speech on the future of ethical tech. Outside, in a rented Toyota Camry parked illegally in the loading zone, 2 exhausted mothers were preparing to destroy him. Are we connected? I asked, looking over Jessica's shoulder. Leo was asleep in his car seat in the back, oblivious to the fact that his mother was currently hacking into a secure media feed. Jessica typed furiously on her laptop, which was tethered to Mark's burner phone. Almost, Jessica muttered. The signal is strong. They're using a localized Wi-Fi for the teleprompter and the main screen. The password was literally Sterling 2024. These people are arrogant. Arrogance is their fatal flaw, I said. Mark used his daughter's due date as a passcode. Arthur uses his own name. They think they're untouchable. Inside the hall, the live stream on my phone showed Arthur Sterling walking onto the stage. The crowd applauded. He looked distinguished, trustworthy, the kind of man you'd vote for. Ladies and gentlemen, Arthur began, his voice booming. Transparency is not just a buzzword, it is the foundation of our society. Okay, Jessica pressed a final key. I'm in the control node. We have control of the Jumbotron and the global live stream. Do it, I said. Jessica hit enter. On my phone screen and on the massive screen behind Arthur Sterling in the convention hall, the sleek Sterling Corp logo flickered, smooth at secure form. The crowd gasped. Arthur turned around confused. Then, the screen went black. A new image appeared. It was the client list spreadsheet. Senator Davidson, $50,000. Judge Miller, $20,000. Will Cunningham headwindy. Arthur froze. Technical difficulties? He shouted into the mic. Cut the feed! Cut the feed! But we had locked them out. Now the video, I ordered. The spreadsheet vanished. In its place, a grainy video played. It was one Mark had taken on the burner phone insurance, he probably called it. It showed Arthur Sterling sitting in a dimly lit office, handing a thick envelope to a man in a suit. Arthur's voice.
Make sure the environmental report disappears. I don't care if the groundwater is toxic. I want that permit approved by Friday.
The silence in the convention hall was absolute. Then the murmuring started. Then the shouting. "This is a deep fake," Arthur screamed, his composure shattering. "This is AI generated. Arrest whoever is doing this." One last thing I said to Jessica. She queued up the final image. It was a photo of Mark smiling, holding the burner phone. Below it, text appeared in bold red letters. Evidence provided by Mark Jenkins, former regional director. Current federal witness. We threw Mark under the bus one last time. By pinning the leak on him, we ensured Sterling Corp wouldn't just be mad at him, they would destroy him. And the feds would have to put him in protective custody forever, just to keep him alive. "Let's go," I said. We drove away as the sirens started. Police cars screamed toward the convention center, bypassing us completely. We weren't the targets anymore. We were just two women in traffic. 6 months later. The coffee shop in downtown Portland smells like roasted beans and rain. It's far enough from Seattle to be safe, but close enough to home. I sat at a corner table reviewing the proofs for the book cover. The Secret Life. How one phone exposed a corporate empire. Jessica walked in, shaking a wet umbrella. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, sharper. She looked happy. She was carrying Leo, who was now walking and babbling. "Hey," she smiled, sliding into the booth. "Did you see the news? Arthur Sterling's plea deal," I asked. 10 years, she grinned. And Sterling Corp is filing for bankruptcy. Their stock is worth less than the paper it's printed on. Our programs. Do some of this robe eat?
And Mark?
Jessica's smile faltered for a second, but then returned, harder this time. Sentenced to 15 years, no parole. And since he turned state's witness against the cartel guys involved in the construction deals, he's in solitary for his own protection. He spends 23 hours a day in a box. He wanted a private life, I said, sipping my latte. Now he has one. "How is Lily?" Jessica asked. "She's great. My mom is watching her. She took her first steps yesterday." "Leo asks about Daddy sometimes," Jessica admitted quietly. "I tell him Daddy went away to learn how to be a better person. It'll take a long time." We sat there for a moment, two women bound by a trauma that should have destroyed us. Mark tried to pit us against each other. He thought he could keep us in separate boxes, separate states, separate lives. He didn't realize that by creating two families, he was actually building an army. I looked at the burner phone sitting on the table between us. I had kept it, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. "You know," I said, "he really thought he was a genius, hiding it under the changing table." "Men like Mark always think they're the smartest person in the room," Jessica said, "until they meet a woman who knows how to check the receipts." I picked up the phone. I walked over to the trash can in the corner of the coffee shop. "You keeping that?" Jessica asked. "No," I said. "I'm done with secrets." I dropped the phone into the trash. It landed with a dull thud among the empty cups and coffee grounds. I walked back to the table, back to my friend, back to my life. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I am a single mother, I am a best-selling author, and I am the woman who burned it all down to save myself. Mark wanted a surprise? He got one. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal and revenge, please make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you have teamed up with the other woman or handled it alone? I'll see you in the next story.